Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. This is 10 minutes of Torah. Not 10 minutes of Torah from Cedarhurst, not even 10 minutes of Torah from America, but this is 10 minutes of Torah from the holy city of Yerushalayim. And since it's a little bit warmer here than in New York, although frankly not that much, but I am recording today outside on the what we call a mirpeset, the balcony of where we are staying. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you what a nice view, beautiful Yerushalayim there. It's buildings, but it's also flowers and everything is in bloom here. And it's springtime, of course. It's also springtime in America, but spring comes a little bit earlier here generally, and everything is in bloom already here, all the flowers, not just the early daffodils. So you'll notice also that since I am in Yerushalayim, in the holy city of Jerusalem, usually I'm dressed a little bit fancier, but it's fascinating the different customs that come about in Israel. They don't dress very well at all for holidays. Some people, once in a while, I'll see people in a suit, and of course, the ultra Orthodox are always wearing their suits and white shirts. But the synagogues that I go to, which are either modern Orthodox or traditional conservative synagogues, I look around, and if I were to wear a jacket and a tie, I would be the only one wearing a jacket and a tie. So here I am, a little bit more, shall we say, informal, telling you about Torah from Jerusalem. Now, here we are approaching the end of Pesach, and if you've never had the chance to spend Pesach in Israel, I have to tell you, it's something that you should try to do sometime in your life, because Pesach in Israel is very different than Pesach in America. Even in Cedarhurst, where there seems to be almost as many Jews as there are in Jerusalem. Not quite as many, but almost as many. What is so different about Pesach here in Israel? Well, to begin with, there's only one Seder. I remember when I was a young college student, the first time I came to Israel, I was shocked to find out that Israel has only one Seder. Well, we always, of course, have two. I mean, when do you go to the other grandparents or Machatanim? Well, the truth is that if you look in the Torah reading, it tells us that the first day of Pesach is a holiday, and the last day, only one day, day 1 and day 7, are days when we don't do work. And the other day is what we call Chol HaMoed, which means a holiday on a weekday. And it's also a part of what it means to celebrate Pesach in Israel, because since it is a holiday, there are many businesses that are closed. And even the official businesses of the state, for example, banks and the post office, they're not closed, but they're only open for half a day, recognizing that it is a holiday. And one of the wonderful parts of being in Israel, especially in Jerusalem during Pesach, is all of the availability of Passover food. First of all, you go to the supermarket and you don't have a little section somehow cordoned off. Most, if not all, of the stores that are open are completely kosher for Passover. Yes, I know that Gourmet Glatt is also kind of like that, but that's one store and a few others here and there. In Jerusalem, it is basically every store. And the general feeling is this is their holiday. It's our holiday too, but it's their vacation kind of holiday. And so that feeling is also in the air, and it's really something worth celebrating. And finally, as I've already alluded to, Passover in Israel is 7 days, not 8. Why is it 8 days outside of Israel? Because every holiday we double the day. We weren't sure in ancient times which day was exactly the holiday outside of the land of Israel. It was always declared in Israel which day. They didn't have a set calendar. Each month was declared by the court in Jerusalem when the month began. And if you lived a long way from Jerusalem, you might not have heard when the month began and know which exact day was Pesach or other holidays. And so we developed the custom of what we call a 2-day Yantif. Well, in Israel, we don't have that. Only one day. So when in Israel, Pesach is only 7 days. And that too has a more natural feeling, I must say. You would think 7 days, maybe it takes something away from the holiday instead of being 8. Just the opposite. You feel like our ancestors who were leaving Egypt, who were in the desert, eventually, as we say in Dayenu, what was their ultimate purpose? Their ultimate purpose was to get to the land of Israel and enter it and celebrate their leaving Egypt. And that was 7 days. So we have 7 days of Pesach here in Israel. You know, when I was a student, I thought, maybe I should observe 8 days since I'm from America. And then I felt kind of silly because I was almost the only one I could see not eating chametz. You couldn't get matzah anymore on what would be the 8th day. So being in Israel for Pesach is just a wonderful, beautiful experience. Of course, we're here with family. Our daughter Ariel made Aliyah and lives here. Judy's sister Dina has lived here for, probably 35, 40 years and has 4 boys. And so for us, it's also a wonderful gathering of family. Now, let's talk a bit about the Torah portions. So on Shabbat, the 7th day of Pesach, we complete the story of leaving Egypt. And how is that completed? It's the 10th plague, the death of the firstborn. And we read that on Pesach, on the 7th day of Pesach, on Shabbat. And then on the 8th day of Pesach in Cedarhurst, as I said, no 8th day here, on the 8th day of Pesach, we read a special section from Devarim, from Deuteronomy, that talks about all of the holidays and how it is our obligation to go to Jerusalem to celebrate when we can. And in ancient times, of course, people did that. It's called a pilgrimage holiday. Actually, that's what the word Chag really means, a pilgrimage. And so on the 8th day of Pesach, you'll be reading about how each of those times we're supposed to make an appearance in Jerusalem and celebrate. And that is the reading on the 8th day. So I want to return for a moment, though, to the reading this Shabbat, the 7th day of Pesach. We read about the 10th plague. And the 10th plague, over the years, has become more and more, what shall I say, uncomfortable, I think is perhaps the correct word. That is, the death of the firstborn. We don't celebrate that. We mention it. We don't say how wonderful it is that our God killed all of the firstborn of Egypt. We say how wonderful it is that God took us out of Egypt, and as a part of that, in order to do that, God had to deliver the 10th and final plague, the death of the firstborn. But it seems to me that it is not something that we glorify. It is something that we accept. As a matter of fact, in modern Israeli history, one of the greatest statements attributed to Golda Meir, not clear if she actually said it or not, but by now it doesn't matter. It's a beautiful statement. Golda Meir said to the Arab communities that, of course, she was the prime minister during the Yom Kippur War, and she said, we can forgive you for killing our sons, because at that time only sons were in combat in that war. We can forgive you for killing our sons, but we can never forgive you for making us kill your sons. And during Pesach, Hallel, which we've been reciting every day, after the first days of Pesach, we recite a little bit less of the full Hallel. We skip two different paragraphs, and that is to say that our joy is a little bit decreased, because in order for us to have achieved freedom, it meant that others, unfortunately, were destroyed. And I think that is the true message of Pesach to all of us. That as Jews, we've chosen over the years not to emphasize destruction, but to emphasize God's kindness, to emphasize freedom, to emphasize what Pesach really stands for, and that is a holiday in which we celebrate our freedom, but not the destruction of our enemy. Well, this has been 10 Minutes of Torah, coming to you from Yerushalayim. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach.